Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Lucky. This is a 2020 film, and fortunate enough, this movie is available on Amc Plus, or you can also go on to a Google Play Store and search the word TV Crush, and be able to find a logo that says the word HD Movies. You'll be able to download that app. Dare, in fact, be able to see Lucky for absolutely free. You'll have to watch ads, but after that, you may be good, like happy that you could go on and see a movie without like going into a certain kind of app to pay a certain kind of fee eventually. So, Lucky, what is this movie about? So, I may have to explain my intentions of wanting to see this movie, because at the end of this story, I start to realize that there's a certain pattern that might be emerging here, that people may see that pattern and may be upset about this film. And that was not my intention to think of this movie that way. It all of a sudden just was to go on like, maybe somebody is gonna watch this film and think that this movie is this. And so, like, I didn't come on here and talk about this movie really with that purpose, but like I want to like also bring that to people's attention. So my intention for this film was that it felt like Happy Death Day to me. We have May, who is to go on and is to wake up in the middle of the night and realize that there is some guy breaking in. And so immediately she goes to her husband Ted to try to like figure this out, or to go on and like have both of them together try to like take care of this guy. And Ted, who is just like, oh yeah, like this is a thing that happens every single night. Like yeah, like this guy continues to break in, and yeah, like there's nothing we can do. And May is like, wait a minute, Ted, so you've known about this? And Ted is just like, yeah, let's just go on. Like, I've already, like, I'm not going to explain it any more than that. Like, because the more and more that May tries to poke Ted for questioning, the more Ted just gets more and more frustrated, and then he just leaves. And May is just like, what the is going on here? Like, so we go on and we realize that this stalker or intruder is every single night going to go on and break into this house one way or another. And every time May and or Ted is to call the police, which Ted isn't really in much of this film, and it really just relies on May. May goes on and tries everything, like calls the police, talks to detectives, and like everybody is going out of their way to really not help this girl. And because like there is no like person that's going to come in and help. It's like the cliche-ish horror movie where like this person is just going to continue to do this, and there's nothing anyone can do besides this girl at some point probably getting killed. So we go on into this film, and we have May that, like, you would have thought, like, May would have gone on and had her house, like, set up as if it was, like, Macaulay Culkin's Home Alone, and you would have thought that May would have escalated in her weaponry to have, like, maybe not a gun, because technically there's a waiting list to have a gun. And I think a lot of movies just don't go on and showcase that there's like a waiting period for a gun. But you would have thought that May would have gone on and like bought an axe, or you would have thought she would have bought like some like thing that would have really like created a much more like distance thing between her and this killer. But we also, the one thing that does escalate is we start to have multiple multiple slashers, multiple killers going after multiple women in some parking lot towards the end of this film, to just see that like this world is all of a sudden descending into this slasher like world. And that I thought was really cool. But then I also turn around and I'm just like, why is it that all the slasher people are all guys? Why? Yeah. Because maybe because especially with how this movie like really ends, it's like so but let's go into spoilers, because that was my intention, to present a movie with us, like it was just I'm trying to save myself here, because really at the end of it all, like I thought there was something really interesting about this, but there was also some uncomfortable things about this movie also. So with that said, let's go into that double five time territory. Let's just go into spoilers about this film. Let's go into spoiler time. It's spoiler time. It's about the time we get spoil this movie. So we have May, that is to be this novel writer, and so she goes to a guy named Rob, who's her publisher, and Rob is just mentioning, that's like, well, hey, like you're just kind of continuing to like push these books and stuff like that. Like, how about you go on and like you should probably now go and write a sequel book, because it feels that as soon as May is to write this book, a lot of people are immediately asking her. It's like, well, hey, when are you going to write another one? So Rob is to tell May, it's like, well, hey, like maybe you should go on and write a sequel book and call it, because her original one is called Do It Alone. And we have Rob that says like, well, maybe the next title should be like Do It Alone Together. And May is like, I don't think that that's a really like interesting enough title. So May goes on and is to realize that like whatever she's going to talk to with his publisher is kind of leading nowhere. So May goes on and is to just go home, where eventually she's to meet up with her husband Ted. And so Ted starts to talk to May about like the publisher meeting. And so May is kind of thinking that maybe they should both take time and work work on one another, like possibly, or try to try to work on their relationship. So after that, we go on. We have Ted and we have May who go to sleep, and so May is to go on and get this phone call from, I believe, Edie at like late at night, saying that's like, well, hey, like your appointment for your book signing is gonna be at 1 o'clock. And May's like, well, did you really have to call? Like, couldn't you have sent me a tweet? Couldn't you have texted me? And so Edie's like, oh, okay, I'll know that for next time. I'm like, sure. So we go on and we have May, who is to try to go back to sleep. And like May, I think tries to say something to Ted, and Ted's like, I'm already asleep. So May all of a sudden is hear these like rumblings. It's like, what is this? May is to go on and wake up Ted and try to make sure that he's really awake. And so May is going on saying like, well, hey, I hear an intruder. I hear a man of some sort. And Ted is like, well, yeah, that's the guy that always comes prowling around every night trying to kill us. So, like, yeah, let's get ready. And so Ted just grabs these clubs and he's like, come on, May, let's go down there and try to get at this guy. May's like, what? Like, how is it that you know all of this? And Ted's like, just come on. Like, I don't want to explain it. Whatever. So Ted goes on into the house, and I guess he gets like knocked unconscious, and May goes after him, and that's when the intruder called the man is to go on and try to get to May. So while May is all of a sudden like fending for her life, we have Ted come in who clubs this guy with his golf club, and May's like, "Oh my god, like we should call the police." Ted's like, "I don't think we really need to do that because it like I think the guy's already vanished anyways." And May's like, "Well, we should really call the police." And Ted's like, "Okay, fine, you've convinced me." So so for May, like Ted is realizing that like Ted has probably been through the gauntlet of this, and May is just kind of confused that Ted isn't really like saying more about what's really going on here. So May is also asking, it's like, well, yeah, shouldn't we call the authorities? And Ted is like, well, no, I think the guy's already like disappeared already. And May's like, what? They both look behind them, and the guy's already like disappeared as if he's Michael Myers from Halloween. So we have May and we have Ted who call the police, and we get this officer that comes in and is to fill out this report, and the officers go on and talk with Ted, and Ted is to say, it's like, well, yeah, I've never seen this guy before, as he's looking directly at May, and he's like, yeah, I've never seen this guy. And May's like, what are you talking about? I'm so confused, Ted. So they fill out the report, and so we go on, and May is to like the next day talk to Ted and ask him before he heads on to like I guess work. May is telling Ted like, well, like what were you talking about before? Like what were you talking about last night? And Ted was like, well, yeah, I've already explained it. It's like the guy always comes. And so May is like, well, do you think he's going to come now? And Ted's like, no, it's during the day. But we come to find out that it seems that this guy just kind of comes whenever. And so, like, he comes whenever, like, every single day. And so it doesn't matter day or night or whatever. He just comes whenever. So we have May and we have Ted, and so May is wanting to like stop Ted from going to work, and just wanting like May to just like have Ted just kind of take a day and like just explain everything. And Ted is like, no, you know, I'm just done. Like I think I've explained everything. I'm just gonna go. Because honestly, the more and more that Ted will probably explain to this person anyways, the more May won't get it. To where no matter how many times you probably explain it to somebody, they're not going to understand. And so May just has to be in it to then understand what's going on. So Ted ends up getting just so frustrated that he leaves in anger, and all of a sudden he's gone for a number of days. And May is like, okay, like May is hoping that Ted is going to come home, and like May's living in fear, and so all of a sudden Ted doesn't show up till like the very end of the film after this whole moment, leaving May to just kind of be like defenseless. And so May is at some point to go on and realize that this window is broken, so May goes and puts this like wood board up, and is to have this hammer, and like so like never turns into Home Alone, never has May go on and like just fortify her house, nothing like that. Or we probably just don't get to that point in this movie because an hour and 20 minutes are rolling past here. So May, because I think we would have just like any way that May would have probably gone on and up the ante here, the man would have figured out a way to get in here, because we kind of see that towards the back half of this movie that this guy finds a way. So May goes on, and she is to kind of wait out this first night with a golf club in her hand. And so this guy does break in, and May then has to go on and club this guy, beat the crap out of him. And every single time she loses her like eye line on this guy, he disappears. And so May has to go on some days and clean up the blood left behind by this guy, or is to clean up herself, where like there's blood all over her like own shirt, because there's going to be like a number of times where this guy just bleeds all over her while she's killing him. It's like, what a burden. So May goes on and is to continue to have to go after, or have this guy go after this guy, and every time May is to call the cops and have this escalate to having this detective come in, this officer, is he in here somewhere? Officer Pace. Officer Pace comes in and he's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll be like the detective of this whole thing. And so we go on and we have Officer Pace, who is to repeat a moment that May is to have. Because May at some point was to go on and see on this coffee table that she had this broken glass. And May is like, this seems like a thing that could be really dangerous. And May goes on and is to see like there's this one like plate that could like chip off and break, and she's like, okay, this is weird. Like it seems like there's a number of items that are all like chipped and are gonna break soon for some reason, as if probably they've been like hit against somebody or whatever. So we have May that's like escalating to this detective of like, what are you guys gonna do to help me? And because you guys, like, it's been 3 days now and this guy's continued to go after me. And they're like, well, yeah, like, so we go on here and we have it where May goes on and is to continue to fight this guy out, and she goes on, and this turns into, instead of being at night, this is the middle of the day. And I'm kind of wondering if it's going to be like at any specific time or something like that, or is this just like to be like whenever rando thing of just like, hey, this guy comes back. So at some points we have May, who finally is to confront this guy, because we go on here and we have May that is just making some food for the night, and all of a sudden the guy like comes in there and he's like hey, because May is to go on and like put this like install this security thing, hoping that it's gonna go off, and like we have the killer that goes on, the man who goes on and is to take the security thing and rip it out of the house, toss it in front of her, just say like, yeah, that's not gonna work. And so May is now confronted by this man, and she's like, what do you want? Like, and she goes on and she is to like mention to like something that she was to go on and say from one of her book as this like catchy thing. And so we go on and we have this guy who's popping out this kitchen knife, and May is like, okay, let's go. So May seems to barely sleep ever. It seems that when she is to face this guy and is to stab into him, and like he is to be all bloodied over her to where she has to go on and clean herself with all this blood, May at some point is to go to this book signing. And this book signing also leads to her having to like answer questions from a number of her fans. And May is just so frazzled and just so like exhausted that when she's having to answer all these questions, she's just like, what is the point that I'm going to get here? And so May just kind of throws out some words that are meaningless as far as answers goes to this person, and she's like, well, just go it alone or do it alone. And May's just like, okay, sure, yeah. Like, because this woman is to go on and ask her a question about, like, well, like, do you think that men and women like feel fear differently, and that we should go on and like all like women should be in a group together and all of this stuff? And I'm like, okay, this is kind of some weird questioning. And so May doesn't have an answer for that. It's just like, gee, ooh, golly. And so we also have somebody asking her a question about, like, well, hey, like, do you have a idea of what your next book is about? And May is like, yeah, I think I'm doing a new book. What is it about? My gee, golly. I'm like, so May doesn't answer anything, and then she just goes on and just signs books. She's like, here you go. I'm just freaking exhausted. You would have thought May would have gone on and decided to, like, well, hey, my next thing is a horror story, and I'm gonna like write down my whole experiences, and it's gonna be like an autobiography of my horror experience with this guy that's to have continued to come after me every single night. You would have thought that would have been her next book, to just kind of quiet everybody up. But no, May, like you would have thought like she would have like wrote with like what she's like right from life, I guess. So May goes on, and so we just continue to have this guy come at her to the point of May like calling the police and then wanting to like speak with their bosses and speak with, and so May finally leaves her house to go to a girl named Sarah's place, who is actually Ted's sister. As May and Sarah are going on and like looking at like certain light bulbs and stuff like that to like up the like security on their place. So we have May and we have Sarah, and so May goes on and is to like temporarily be living with Sarah to hope that now finally this guy won't find her and come after her. So all of a sudden we have May, who is talking to Sarah, because we even have at one point where May is to bring up, because the social worker is to come to her house and is to talk about like, well, like, why do you think that there's a possibility that there may be a man after you, that this might be all in your head? And May is like, well, it's not in my head. This happens every night. And so I was like, well, maybe there's a possibility that somebody could be after you. And May was to also report like her husband Ted is missing and has been missing for a number of days. And so like somebody better find him to bring him home. So that way, because she's called him, texted him, whatever, and like she can't get a response from him. So maybe they should go on and think that this is the lead suspect, if anything. Even though Ted has gone on and beat the out of this guy, still. So we have May that goes on and is to talk to this social worker, and the social worker, like, May reveals that she had cheated on Ted once before while she was on this book tour, and that it seemed that they were kind of to like maybe work past that and whatever, because they're still in a relationship. So but like they kind of get out of nothing of that, where it's like, well, that could be the motivation, like this could be like the inner like the inner Ted just kind of manifesting and whatever. Like they don't go into that. Like there isn't anything like it like inside of that, just kind of figuring that out. That would have been interesting to possibly have it towards like, okay, well, this is like the this could possibly be like a a whole mental thing we could crack open, but instead, so May goes on and is to live with Sarah, and they start talking about things. And May has also noticed that Sarah has a scar on her back, and so May is like, okay, well, like, hey, you have a scar on your back, and Sarah's like, oh, well, that's some old scar, and it's like, really, is it though? So all of a sudden, May is to go on and leave here, or no, Sarah is to go on and leave here, and May is to be with a kid called Cooper. So all of a sudden we have May going into this room, kind of setting up for her to temporarily live here, and the man comes back. Is to come through and showcase himself, to just like booga 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 kind of thing. And so now May is like racing off, uh, because like she is to close this door and tell Cooper to like go into his room and call the police. So May goes on and is trying to protect herself away from this man, and come to find out, they have this kind of little like concrete kind of area in the back here, and like this killer tries to like smash May into this like concrete wall, and so May uses hammer and to smack the killer and kills him again. Both of them fall over. All of a sudden, this paramedic is to check on May, and so May is talking to this paramedic, and so the paramedic is going on and like, well, yeah, like Sarah's fine, like Cooper's fine, and so all of a sudden May is to start to go on, and like all of these people just start to all show up at once. We have the social worker, we have Officer Pace that comes back, we have these other detectives and police officers and whatever, and so all of a sudden, like May is being swarmed by these people, and all of them all of a sudden are weirdly like finishing one another's sentences or kind of saying the exact same thing at the exact same time. And then all of a sudden, like everybody is starting to like sing certain things at certain times, to just be like, is May just crazy? like is like is this all in her head now? Because like May is having these guys like, can I ask you a question? And like, what the fuck? What's going on in this movie? What the fuck? So May is just like, you know what? Like, I need to be away from you people. And so May leaves, and one of the officers like, well, hey, like, Officer so and so, can I ask you a question over here? And then like that's how the scene just kind of ends off. So May at this point is just like, this is just like too much. So May goes on and goes back to her place, and through all of the number of times that she's gone on and tried to take this guy down at this point, and it just comes this like, how many times can she go after this guy? Like the one point we had the one cool moment where May was to have this like baseball bat, and she was sleeping, and the killer woke her up while she was sleeping, and then so May was trying to fend herself off, and she ends up like smacking this killer. And there was quite a few times where she tried to like get this tape or this rope to try and tie this guy up, but every time she tried to do that, he disappears. And so like there's, I guess, I never thought in her mind where she's like, well, hey, maybe I can lasso him and tie him up, and like he'll still be alive, and I can show everybody, aha, here's the guy. But I'm sure if she would have gone on and tried this, like the killer would have broken out of the rope, or something would have happened to where like there was no way for like May to have been able to do that. So, like, I'm sure writing, right? Writing. Or if she would have roped him up, all of a sudden he probably would have disappeared. Because that probably would have happened also. To have subdued this man in some way would have led to a disappearance act. So, but it's kind of cool that May almost got to the point of like, of roping this guy or taking him down, and every single time he disappears. So May then goes on and is to go into this parking lot, and all of a sudden she starts finding out that girls like Edie uh, are starting to get attacked by masked men also. And so now we have this onslaught of all these women that are all getting attacked by all of these guys. And we have it at one point where Edie's like, well, hey, can you help me? Like, I'm getting attacked. And, like, May is just like, well, like, no. Like, I've been through this enough. Like, no. Like, it's just never going to end. It's just going to happen every single day. You just need to do it alone. Like, consistently quoting her book title to people. So, May is going on through this parking lot, and she is trying to help her friend, but then again, like, killers just keep coming. So we have where May is just trying to run around while all other women are getting attacked, to where like certain women are like, hey, could you help me? And May's like, nope. Nope. Goodbye. Hopefully you don't die. See you later. Running in this parking lot, just like, F everybody else. I'm getting out of here. So we start to see at random points that women are starting to get killed, and so May's going into her car, getting the heck out of there. And so May all of a sudden is to have her killer like just show up, and so she runs him over, and then she drives away, and the guy gets right back up. It's like, I'm gonna come after you. So May finally, towards the end of this movie, is to go home, and I'm like, man, they should have like, they didn't reveal anything. They just like went on and just said, okay, this is this world now, and deal with it. They never explain anything, or they never really possibly get anywhere. But still, the end of this movie may have you feel different. So we have May and we have Ted here, and so we have them like re-meet up with one another. And May is like, oh my god, and she's hugging Ted, and she's like, oh my god, like, you're home. And Ted's like, well, yeah, like, you know about the argument that we had, like, last time? It's like, well, you know what, like, I'm sorry, like, let's work this out. And May's like, yeah, like, let's forget about all of it. Let's go on and let's just go back home. And Ted is telling May, it's like, well, you know that we're not going to be safe in this house, right? And May's like, yeah, I get it, but who cares? Like, we're just going to have to keep on and defending for ourselves. There's no way out of this. So Ted and May hug, and all of a sudden this leads to Ted getting a knife in the back, and now he's dead. May all of a sudden is to scramble her way into this house, just kind of watching every window as this guy is to just kind of make his way around this house. So May all of a sudden is to go on to this kind of like back part of her house and is to try to lock this door. I'm like, you can't come in now, can you? And I'm like, one, this is a glass door. And dos, we find out that now all of a sudden this killer has a key for everything. And May's like, what? Like, wait a minute. Like, no. Like, that's not fair. And the killer just comes into the door. He's like, hi. Like, he never says anything, but he's like, hey, I'm here again. Like, we have it when, of course, Ted ends up getting stabbed. Ted drops, and the killer is like waving. Like, hey, I'm here. Even though he never says anything. So Maya's going on, is like, what do you want? I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this at all. And so finally she's like, come on. So because she's throwing books at the killer, she's just exhausted. She's like, blah, like, I'm so tired of this. And so she has this one like chunk of glass on a coffee table, and she's like, okay, let's make a meal out of this. So May goes on and is to stab this guy in the neck, and they both fall over again, like she did before with the whole hammer scenario. And finally, since May is looking at this guy, May finally goes on and is to see that she can kind of like peel away this guy's mask finally, because it's kind of like this see-through clear like mask thing. So she pulls it off, and all of a sudden we see that this face is to possibly be Ted, but then it's also to be Officer Pace, and any number of any man that has really been in this film. The face is there. And so I'm like, oh my god, maybe this might mean that somebody might just be going on of like, what the fuck? Like, what is it like? Like every man is to be like this killer, or like that there's like what does this mean exactly? But like I possibly just take it as like this killer doesn't really have a face. That like this is just some faceless killer, and there's never gonna be like a solving of this. There's never gonna be a way out. There's never gonna be a figuring this out, and there's never going to be that this is going to be like finally like finished and done and whatever. So like we're just stuck with like them going at this forever, and there's never going to be a solving solution, nothing, no matter what they do. I would love to have seen like this Home Alone kind of scenario, or for them to just kind of have this be like, oh, okay, well, like this is attempt number 804 that I've gone on and just like figured it out at this point, or I've gotten to a place where I can go on and consistently catch this guy, and but that like just never happens. And I thought that would have been like a really cool like how we have like Zombie Killer of the Week from Zombieland, where people just start to figure it out after a time. But no, it never gets to that. You just have to naturally assume that all the people that are going to get attacked are all going to get killed, and then what next for them? Maybe they go on and get killed, and immediately they just go right back to that same world, but the thing is that they don't remember. Maybe that could be the story, where it's like even if you die, you'll just come back and your memory is gone, and you're just doing this all over again, but this time around you're like, well, wait a minute, what? Like, I can't figure it out. And like, because I don't think if you die that you are to still like be going through this, because as like your normal self, because then it'd be like, well, like, so there is no way out of this, there is no figuring out like whatever. But anyways, I think I'm just gonna get out of here, call this one a movie, because maybe no one will probably watch this review, because I would completely understand that, because it's not exactly a popular film. An AMC Plus movies, like, I like them, but like, man, I wish that they would actually go on and produce something. It really, I guess, has to be a really trending movie on its own right, but still. With that said, I'm just gonna get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.